Welcome to Fretboard Frolics. I'm your host, Mikhal Caldwell. This week's show will be focused on creative usages for your right hand, things to improve your right hand techniques, to make it a little bit more interesting. Also, we were very, very blessed to have Mr. Meola, one of the most innovative and creative guitar players of the history of the guitar, to come along and share some very insightful views on technique and industry, things you may not hear much about normally. We'll be back with that and much more after these brief messages.
Have you ever wanted to learn how to make your own TV show? Well, here at United Cable of Oakland County, you can do just that. United Cable offers free classes in single camera, editing, studio production, and mobile studio production. To learn more about these classes, call the public access studio nearest you in Ferndale, Berkeley, Royal Oak, Troy, and Rochester.
Hi, welcome back. As I had mentioned at the head of the show today, we're going to take some time and focus on the idea of creative usages for the right hand. Over the last 3 years now, we've incurred probably millions and millions of different ideas we've shared with each other, or I've tried to share with you some of my thoughts about creative guitar playing, or not so much guitar playing, but creative musicianing, I like to think of calling it. We focused quite a bit on the utilization of the mind, the linking of the mind with your left hand, or if you happen to be a left-handed guitar player, with your right hand, whichever the case may be. But we tried to kind of get the idea of how to match things up logically. What happens, what occurs when music is actually being played? Not so much the devastating new pyrotechniques that are out, you know, how to do neck karate and all that kind of stuff, but actually usable things that occur when you're playing music, such as playing over the top of moving chord progressions, matching arpeggios to different chords and scale tones, finding the in-between notes or the passing tones and how they can become very, very good friends and useful tools to get us on the expressway of improvisation. I think that over the last 3 years, too, we've also discussed that improvising is a very, very special thing and should be a very, very selfish gift. You have to be very, very selfish with yourself. You have to always want to strive to do more. You have to always be looking for yourself to do better. You have to really look out for yourself when you improvise. Improvising is something that you give to people, and you can't possibly give something away that means a lot to you if it doesn't mean anything to you, if you don't have any real true emotional content involved in that. What I'd like to give you today is some ideas about how to use your right hand a little bit differently. For some strange reason, we happen to have one of the guys on the show interviewing today, Mr. Meola, whose right hand is something that's been amazing to me since I was a child, one of my major influences in learning. So I'm going to try to share some techniques that I learned from Al and some things that I've learned from other people. One of the very basic techniques you see right now is very, very simple downstroke. Downstrokes on chord progressions, for example. A very simple chord melody, like, for example. You notice that this happens a lot with downstroking. This can also happen with up and down stroke to give it the same kind of feel, but just a little bit different flavor. So it looks like this. Now, being around the neighborhood, being around the ghetto quite often, or growing up in an environment that was culturally forcing me to hear a lot of music that I would consider ghetto ethnic music. I would call that funk and stuff. You develop a lot of different right-hand techniques, quite a few different things, to accommodate the styles of music. For example, we'll use something in E here, like a dominant progression. Okay, what you just heard there was a little bit of a style that was kind of invented by a guy named Jimmy Nolan. He used to play with James Brown's band. Actually, it sounds very, very, very percussive. That's because it's a very, very percussive style of playing, a very percussive approach to actually playing rhythm, or comping, as the term goes. There's some other very, very creative usages we can find for up and down stroke techniques when just using melodic lines or single note melodies. For example, there's an idea of getting more strength in your playing, getting a stronger feel when playing on a single note line by using solid down picking. I have seen this done by John McLaughlin. I was totally amazed to watch somebody play downstrokes that fast, man. It kind of blew me away. But I also noticed the strength he played was like some He-Man stuff, man. Like he had a sword, and it was like, by the power of, you know, Grayskull or something. He was really playing some incredible lines. I practice this, and some of the things that I would suggest as good practicing techniques to use this and make it a musical statement is to try little things like maybe just almost like an arpeggio or subpeggio, half of an arpeggio. Let's look at a major one, for example. And we can move this up like flat 5 and get an effect of just what it feels like to play downstrokes. So you can get a feeling of exactly what this feels like and the strength you can get from playing down too. This doesn't always have to happen with just arpeggios. This can happen with whole scales. You can also get away with playing some things like kind of fast. I notice that a lot of times there are players who play in a very traditional jazz styling. I notice a lot of downstrokes or a very slow, smooth up and down stroke with the right hand. I found from my own personal techniques that it seems to work a lot better for me when I'm playing like a real strict jazz line, for me to use downstrokes to be able to accommodate the strength that I feel is necessary to make the technique valid. Some things like, for an example, a little phrase like this. Very simple chord, very, very, very simple chords. Just minor 7. Now, before I even go into this, I want you to understand there are so many different things you can do over the top of a simple chord, just one simple chord progression. The reason I'm not going to try to do anything like rather than do all of that kind of stuff for you right now and have you try to learn a whole bunch of single note lines or a whole bunch of downstroke techniques over the top of that, I feel like the best way to probably learn to do something is to learn it on something that's very simple for you. And if you can play it over the top of that, logically it would make sense to try to increase the difficulty factor in what you're doing later. So for right now, we're just going to use this minor 7 chord. Hopefully you won't get bored to death, so just try to bear along with me. You guys have been playing like 1,000 years. Just put up with this for a second. And for those of you who are really, really tired of that, let's take this whole thing and we'll make it a little bit like this. So there's 2 different opportunities to use these particular single note lines over the top of just a minor 7 vamp. Or you can also use a 9 substitution, 9, and then take it to like a dominant chord. So this sounds a little bit different, and it'll give you an opportunity to try to play these single note things over the top of it. And it's a lot cooler than just sitting around just like, So you can get some useful things out of this. Remember to always try to make what you're playing sound musical. Probably quite a lot of you out there who are like me, who spent years and years just learning all the different modes, all the different scales, and trying to play them as fast as I possibly could and as articulate as I possibly could, and somehow in a way you tend to lose the musicality involved in what's happening. The music leaves and technique becomes so demanding. Sometimes I've noticed that I've been guilty of that, and I've heard a lot of other guitar players who are guilty of that. Luckily today we're going to have, like I can't say enough about this, Mr. Meola is one of those players who crossed that line from being a technical master into being a master of feeling. It's always a great amount of emotional content involved in this. I'm saying that to tell you that as opposed to just practicing modes and scales, practice them in a musical context. I can't stress that enough because we are musicians and not technicians. I mean, technically we'd like to be proficient, but the idea of playing music is to be a musician. Let's look at these vamps again, these little ideas. Just little single note things, little themes that you're just popping in your mind. But it's good things to practice this moving. Downstrokes, solid downstrokes. Let's try this one. What you're doing here is getting an opportunity to move against thirds because that's what's shifting in this particular exercise. There's so many things available that to limit ourselves to one particular way of doing it would be like to cheat you out of the whole beauty of playing music. So let's look at this and see what we can do with this. You'll notice that there was all downstrokes used in this playing in this chord, not up and down as opposed to. All downstrokes tend to give it a much stronger feel. Just listen. So if you try to play things like over the top of that, you have a tendency to use open E is a drone. So there's a lot of things you can do with down picking. Rather than give you a bunch of crazy exercises to do, I'll just show you some themes that work around that particular thing. Just a little scale exercise, but I'm doing it all down picking. You can get a like major 7 feel track. Those are just little ways to use down picking, and maybe the choruses give you something to be as background so that you don't get bored when exercising this. Remember to try to practice everything you can play, up and down strokes, down strokes. Those are very, very valid techniques. The only thing that's not useful is something that you don't use. So think about it like that. Be back with our very special guest and more on guitar playing after this brief message.
Okay, kids, time to buckle up.
Who said that?
Yeah, who said that? I did.
I don't want to buckle up. Yeah, we can't move around. Yeah, don't buckle up.
But a seatbelt can save your life, and it's the law.
What law?
Anyone under the age of 16 must wear a seatbelt.
But we're only going to the store.
It's not far. Short trips or long trips, you must buckle up.
Okay, we'll buckle up. Remember, everyone, be safe and buckle up.
Hi, welcome back. As I mentioned at the head of the show, we have the premier guitarist, at least in my era of playing, the man who's probably responsible for more than a few thousand people playing guitar. He was fast before it was fashionable to be fast. He was tasteful probably before it's fashionable to come. Mr. Meola is like a forerunner in a whole lot of styles. To use the word fusion artist would be like to sell him short. Probably I like to call him truly a world guitar player, and if the word virtuoso is ever used, it's never been used more applicable than to this next person here that I'd like to talk about. Mr. Meola, welcome to Fretboard Frolics.
Thanks, man. Nice to be here.
Hey, it's great to have you. I've got like a list of questions mentally made up that I thought I'd be able to just fire at you and keep my cool.
Go.
But seeing you and sitting here thinking about listening to your first thing I ever got, Land in the Midnight Sun, I'm still in awe of stuff like that, man.
Yeah?
So the stuff that you're doing now is like
I'm glad you don't think it's
mind-boggling.
dated.
No, man, you were like too far ahead of your time to be dated. Like a lot of the things that you do, that you did 7 years ago, people are just trying to get to now. Like a lot of the young shredders,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah,
Without
yeah.
having to mention them, everybody thinks that Paganini was happening now, but I've heard you do stuff that was like beyond
Paganini.
mind-crippling stuff, man. I used to tell my friends that I thought you played so good that it wasn't fair for one person to be that good.
Thanks, man.
What's some of the things you do, man, to maintain the level of excellence that you do, man?
I don't listen to what the radio plays so much, you know. There's a lot of music outside the United States that inspires me a lot. And when you get inspired, you know that you can go back to your instrument, come up with some things you never played before, you know what I mean? It pushes you to new heights. Also playing with players that inspire me pushes me to another level, you know. God knows I've been, you know, fortunate to have played with a lot of guys that were, you know, kicking my butt. So it makes you grow, you know. But, you know, I do my fair share of practicing, you know, when I can. When you're traveling, there's a lot less of that happening. But it's great. I think, you know, you could push yourself on the bandstand to grow as well, you know, every night, as opposed to sitting in a room. There comes a point when you're sitting in a room trying to learn something new that you just run up against that wall all the time. You got to get out there and, like, take chances, you know. In this kind of format, you could take a lot of chances, you know. That's what I like about improvising in the jazz context, is you could play with notes that are inharmonic notes in your scales and your improvisations, and go different directions with them, as long as you resolve in a kind of semi-intellectual way, you know. It's really cool
You know,
what
I've
you
heard
could do
things-
with that, you know.
I've heard things like going way, way back in the beginning, at least for me, of hearing you. But actually, I heard you like a couple years before this, but really hearing you really get a chance to play things that were like to come to tell of the style you've evolved into now, that were like, I heard you say things like dated, man. That's almost impossible. I was still trying to figure out exactly the emotional content. I'm like into Bruce Lee and all that kind of crazy stuff.
Yeah.
But you remind me a lot of him in the sense, man, that you're like super, super emotional. You're able to still play and have a signature sound without sounding the same.
Well, the thing about what I said before was, you know, even like World Symphonia, we make this record, and I feel like it should be released right away, you know, because in 6 months, personally, I might feel it's like, dated, I'm at a new place now, you know what I mean? So, and, you know, I ran up against that with the record company a little bit, and I have a very good record company at the moment, Mesa Blue Moon, and they were more inclined initially to release the Electric album, which is coming out in November 1st, because it makes more sense to the commercial market to do that kind of thing. But to hold on to World Symphonia, since that was ready to go first, and put that out later in '92 would frustrate me, because then it might feel like we've surpassed it in the live concert format, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
And then I'd go, God, I don't want to put this out because we're so much better now, you know? So that thing about dated is you know, don't listen to me, you know, because what do I know? It's just it's a personal thing.
Do you find a big difference going back and forth from acoustic guitar, because acoustic to electric?
It is a big difference.
You play them both so fluidly. I mean, which one is like your preference to do?
Well, I'm so, you know, because I'm doing an acoustic tour with World Symphonia, it would take me about a week or two to get back into the electric and then feel comfortable again. Because we did one show in LA where we showcased the new electric band, but it was like a one-off. So it felt foreign to me. It felt a little bit funny. I mean, maybe not to other people, but to me. But I know it wouldn't take that long to get back into it.
Al, listen, man, you've been kicking butt for like so many years. What was it like at 19 years old to be playing like with Chick, man, and Returning Forever?
Oh, man. It was a dream come true.
Really?
Yeah, because that was my favorite band. You know, I was going to Berklee School of Music, and that was it, you know. I was like, if I had you know, a wish, that would be it, to play with Chick, you know.
Wow.
And then there was a guitarist right here in Detroit who was playing with the band at the time.
Earl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He had like 2 weeks with Chick. And then, as a matter of fact, I saw them play in Boston. And I said, Jesus, look, you know, Earl's a fine player, and then they did this solo set, and then he played, everybody was playing this stuff. And after him at the Seven Galaxy and all this music, progressive music, he comes out, he plays Shadow of Your Smile, which I thought was great. But he had his thing, a stamp and a sound that was maybe a little foreign to the Return to Forever format of that time. Still, he's a fine player. But where my head was at was more where Return to Forever was at the time. Definitely more into the electric, kick-ass fusion thing. So I had made a mention to a friend of mine in New Jersey that how great it would be. And he took it upon himself to hunt Chick down and present him with a tape that he made, this friend of mine made of me playing with Barry Miles before that, 1972 or 73 or something like that. And yeah, that was a tape that he heard. He just persevered. And it was, the timing was right. I think Earl had split from Chick, and they were like desperate to find somebody quick, and there I was, you know.
Al, what's the deal with synthesized playing, man? I mean, you've been doing that and you're getting like, sort of like really, really keyboardish. It sounds like incredible.
Well, not so much on the new album, because I really felt the need to get back to playing electric guitar again and play a lot of solos again.
Yeah.
Just really play. And I don't mean like burn just for the sake of burning, but really have the guitar heard almost all the time. It was something I wanted to do, you know, because I experimented so much on the last few albums with synclavier guitar and that whole stuff. And a lot of acoustic mixed in with the synclavier that, you know, this album, Soaring Through a Dream, which is more compositional in attitude, you would have to find the guitar, you know, but with the new album, which is called, ready for this?
Yeah.
It's called Kiss My Axe.
Are you serious?
Serious.
Great.
All right. That's directed at the music industry, by the way. And radio, and VH1, and all that kind of attitude.
Have it.
It's an
man.
attitude-y record, yeah.
It's cool, man. Have it.
Yeah.
Have it.
It feels good.
I'm down with it, man.
All right.
Hey, man, listen to this. I have to ask you this. If there was any advice you could give any aspiring players, to which everybody who ever watches you, I've turned on guys who listen who've never heard of nobody other than Yngwie Malmsteen, and they listen to you and they go like, wow, is this some new guy? And it's like the album, I'll let them hear something like Flight of the Newborn. So, and they're going, wow, who is this guy, man? I go, this album's like 10 years old, dude.
I feel dated.
Is there any advice? No, man, you're just incredible. You know, good things like art, man. Art is never dated, man. People die, man. Art lives forever. But anyway, that's another conversation. What could you tell somebody who is trying to play and really serious about it? What word of advice would you give them if you could tell them just only a couple things, man? What would you say?
Well, keep your ears open, you know, as much as you can. I would definitely say, try not to be only influenced by what radio plays, because it's amazing how many idiots program radio and idiots that run record companies. It's unbelievable. It's just unbelievable.
I believe
that these people are put in positions of power and dictate what you will be brainwashed to like a lot of the times. Not all of the times, because a lot of what I hear I like too. But the majority, I think, pisses me off, you know. And it's okay that they play the stuff, but why exclude some cats that have spent the years to learn how to play their instrument? And it's become fashionable for these so-called musicians who don't know how to play yet, and I won't name names, but and getting so much attention, it's like not fair. It's not cool. It's not fair. A lot of the popularity of a lot of these people, in my estimation, and I feel that I'm probably very right about this, is the fact that, what was I saying? I forgot what I...
You're talking about industry, man.
Yeah, it's just an unfair process, you know, but a lot of these cats just don't have the talent to deserve that kind of attention that the industry was going to give them, you know.
Al, somebody tried to come to you and make you compromise your values on playing, man? Have they really tried to do something to make you different than you are? I tell you, you could sell more records if you played.
Yeah, sure. They do
it all. Are you serious?
Sure, they do it.
I mean,
you know,
pressure,
but
like pressure.
I don't really listen to it too much because, you know, I've been fortunate to listen to, you know, what my heart was telling me to do. You know, I've had success doing that, so, you know, I don't have to worry about it too much. I've built my reputation on doing stuff that goes against the grain, against what radio wants. You know, now we have a format, this kind of wave format that kind of just plays music-y kind of stuff. And there's written policies on these kind of formats where they're not allowed to play anything too passionate or with too much virtuosity. You know, it's like not cool because it might not make the people relax.
Might make them think.
Yeah, it might make them think. There's no thinking allowed on those. So the format forgot about the players that have spent the time to learn how to play their instruments, and there really isn't that much excitement for me, you know. And I find myself going to rock stations trying to find something. Even the rock stations won't play it because as soon as you start doing something with any kind of technique, then they say, that's jazz. There's no vocals, must be jazz. I think it's jazz. And those are the idiots I'm talking about because they don't know. They don't know that if they play it, their phones will light up, you know. So we are in one stupid country, America. It's stupid. You know, I go to Europe, the kids know about Motley Crue, they know about Guns N' Roses, they know about Aldi Meola. We fill stadiums in some countries. I come back to the States, and it's like, you know, you can't help it.
Feel like you've been abandoned, man?
In some way, yeah. In some way, yeah. There's still a hardcore following, which is great, you know. But there's this new emphasis on on rap and heavy metal. That's unbelievable.
It's brainwashing for the communities.
It's unbelievable. Yeah, a lot of it's brainwashing, I find. You know,
Al, are you
I
into
fall
art at
into
all?
the trap sometimes.
Are you into art at all?
Art?
Yeah.
Like painting art?
Yeah.
Sure.
Do you remember a time during the Renaissance period, like it was a council going around called the Council of Trent? A lot of the things you're talking about were happening to people then, man. You're like a real outside guy. Talking to you like this is like really out of sight, man, because it's a lot more than playing guitar, man. A lot of thought.
Well, I think that the new album, this Kiss My Axe record, the electric record, will retain the integrity that I like to have in my music, but also can reach a wide audience, you know. And perhaps it's the most accessible record I've made in years and years, maybe since Elegant Gypsy.
Really?
I think so, and it also has that integrity and that kick-ass thing.
How do you feel about your electric playing on it?
Good, real good.
Smoking?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah?
yeah.
I gotta
I'm back
ask
to
you
playing
this,
Les
man,
Paul
because-
again now, too.
Really?
Yeah.
Man, if I don't ask you this, everybody I know will hate me. How are you doing that muting, man? Are you muting with your fingers or your palm?
My palm.
Really?
Yeah.
You hold your pick like on the inside too, right? Okay, you guys heard this here, man. That's really great, man, to get a chance to
I
talk
play
to
from
you.
the wrist,
From the wrist?
not from the elbow. Never lock the wrist.
I had
always
read an article
rotate.
about circular picking, man, that you were doing.
If I do it, I'm not conscious of it, you know. It's more of an alternate style. of
Up and down? I seen you do a lot of downstrokes, man. I mean, for so long I was thinking, wow, I bet he has a therapist back there, somebody going like, get the straps ready, we gotta get him ready, the ice packs and
Well,
stuff.
down, down, up, down, down, up, down,
I mean,
up,
I seen
down,
you
down,
like
up.
do
It's
like,
difficult, you know, and then up, up, down is difficult. Those are exercises and stuff. Many of those you can do, but
Now my producer's gonna kill me if I go over any longer, man. Thanks for coming on
that's
our show.
right. Thanks.
When you're in town, man,
it's
do
fun.
it again.
Thanks, man.
Okay.
Cool.
You guys heard it from the phenomenally talented, politically unbiased Mr. Al Meola. Be back after these brief messages.
Perfect bodies are the result of careful planning and comprehensive physical health care for every body that moves. A message from the American Physical Therapy Association.
If you have any questions or comments for Fretboard Frolics, feel free to send them to us here at Fretboard Frolics, 344 West 9 Mile, Ferndale, Michigan, 48220. Hi, welcome back. I hope you learned a lot from Mr. Meola's interview. I mean, it went a lot farther than the actual technique involved in playing guitar. This should teach a lot of you something about the music business, the music world. If there was ever a guy who could ever claim to be a virtuoso, it would definitely be Mr. Meola. And if he has problems with record companies, with the knowledge he has and the technical precision he has and just the good spirit of a human being that he has, you can imagine some of the things us less fortunate people who haven't sold millions of records can expect to come. That means you need to practice really hard, so work on some of the things you've seen in this week's lesson. And for Al Meola, Dave Lungo, and myself, Mikhal Caldwell, I want you guys to practice real hard, make the dots dance on it. See you next week.